welcome into episode 3 of the Secret Spoonie with me, Lisa, and Claire.
Hello, welcome.
You can tell I'm back. Hey, in body anyway, possibly not in brain. I'm going to be relying quite heavily on Claire during this episode. What I've been suffering with recently is pretty much what we're talking about today, which is when you have multiple issues and they all affect each other, and you never know which one is causing the problems, and your doctors certainly think, put the what's the word I'm looking for? My brain's gone. When a doctor puts the onus, that's
a good word.
That's a good
Let's
word.
Use that.
Yeah, we'll use that word. Puts the onus on one thing. For me, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, my mental health has been severely sort of hindered by my CFS, by my ME.
Yes.
I've had depression for years, and when I first got ill, I think I spoke about it on the first episode, my symptoms were all blamed on my mental health. It was all considered to be sort of psychological, I guess, and that's one of the sort of the big problems with diagnosis and treatment. I think you talked about it in the last episode about the sort of NICE guidelines and CBT and all that kind of thing.
So I was looking at them today, and I mean, basically the NICE guidelines are all catered around the idea of the CBT, graded exercise therapy, and getting people to sort of think. The onus is actually on getting people to think positively, which I found incredibly shocking.
I find it really really distasteful, because I'm incredibly positive person, but it doesn't change.
Am I.
You are as well, and it doesn't change the fact, and anybody, all of you who are listening to this, probably exactly the same. Thinking positive does not suddenly make you better, as doesn't yoga, or becoming vegan, or any of the things that, your sister's brother's boyfriend's uncle's girlfriend might have tried something and suddenly got well. One of the things that I've had in recently is a couple of years ago, I was in an accident, and the sort of main tendon that goes down to my left foot was severed, and it meant that I couldn't walk and I couldn't do anything, and it caused a massive dip in both my mental health and at the same time my symptoms, I guess, my chronic fatigue symptoms. I suppose, if your body tries to fight one thing, it hasn't got the energy to look after you. So the spoons aren't there, are they?
No, not at all. I think your problem is your body's expending so much energy on just running, and when you've got CFS, that's double. It's almost double, I feel. And then when you're actually ill with something else, all of a sudden your body's like, oh my God, danger zone, warning, this isn't going well. Even just for me, if I have a flu kind of illness or a cold, it's a million times worse than it used to be.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
My body just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the issues that you have as well is that thing where you go, well, okay, well, I've got these flu-like symptoms. Now, is that my CFS or is it flu? And is one of them making the other one worse? And which way round is it? It's like proper chicken and egg. It's like which is first? Is have I got a virus that's making my CFS worse, or has my CFS got so bad that it's giving me virus-like symptoms? And
exactly.
You're constantly going round in circles, not quite sure what's making things worse. You've got really bad brain fog. Now, for me, because I'm on a tablet called pregabalin, which I
am as well,
and Claire is too, and I think it's very common I think it's a very common treatment for people who have fibromyalgia as well. I think pregabalin is one of gabapentin and fibromyalgia and pregabalin for fibro. And so it's quite a common thing for basically stopping your nerves from completely freaking out, and stops the pain tries to stop the pain signals. But one of the things that I think it does for me is it causes my brain fog to be worse. But I'm not sure, because I don't want to suddenly you can't suddenly stop the medication, because then you're in pain, which makes you more tired, which means that you sleep more, which makes your CFS worse, which makes you feel worse, which makes your depression worse, which makes you, so, and then everything just sort of, it spirals out of control. It's really hard to get a grip of which is the core problem that's causing a lot of the symptoms. And certainly for me, with I had this accident and I have PTSD because of it, and so I have flashbacks, and I have some sort of quite sort of, I suppose, quite sort of serious like mental sort of issues around what happened, and that makes me so tired because I don't sleep, because it's really, I don't know, it's because it's so overwhelming. And so if you're not sleeping properly, then you don't have the spoons, and so you sleep more during the day, which means that you don't sleep at night. And sometimes with CFS, you either sleep too much or you sleep too little. There's no middle ground. I don't know about you, Claire.
Yeah,
I have
I have issues with sleep. I used to have insomnia, but then when I got my CFS, the whole sleep thing just went crazy. I actually had a sleep study done. They found that there wasn't really anything wrong with my sleep, and I actually found it really interesting as well, because when I was reading the NICE guidelines for the previous podcast, and also like looking at them today, they talk about heavily what you were told, which I wasn't told too much. I think they mentioned it in the sleep study place, but that was more on a case of like what they tell everyone.
Yeah.
But this whole thing around, not sleeping too much during the day, sleep hygiene, i.e., not looking at screens right before bed, all of that nonsense.
Yeah.
But I think what's a really important counter to that is there are so many times when I want to stay awake during the day, but I literally can't control the exhaustion that I just fall asleep.
Yeah.
And there are so many times when I'm so exhausted at night. I don't know about you, Liese, but I'm so exhausted that I'm too exhausted to sleep.
Yeah, you go past it. So it's like I suppose it's like when if you're hungry, and generally speaking, like before I got ill, I would, if I pushed and pushed and pushed and I was hungry, but I pushed myself like even an hour past the point that I got hungry, I suddenly wouldn't feel the hunger anymore. It's like your body sort of compensates and goes, well, you're too far gone now.
Yeah, you start feeling sick, don't you?
Yeah, and you start feeling sick, but you're not hungry and you don't want to eat, and that's kind of like the issue the issue that I have with sleep. And my mental health definitely plays a massive part. And as I said, I've always had depression, but it's always been pretty mild. Like it's a chemical imbalance, and I have medication for it, and it's all fine. I'm a generally very happy, very happy individual, and I just get on with it, and it's not a problem. But when I am past the point of normal exhaustion for CFS, and that's again something that so many people don't understand, that it's like you're never just tired. It's like you're either exhausted or too exhausted.
Yeah.
It's like you're running on fumes, or there are no fumes left, but you're far too far past it. Yeah. And my mental health, as I said, definitely comes into play there, and it has done a lot recently. That when it's dark and it's quiet, and I have tinnitus anyway, and I think you do as well.
Yes. Yep. Already had tinnitus.
So I certainly didn't have it before I got sick. It's something that has gradually, it suddenly appeared one day, and then got worse. So I constantly have ringing in my ears, which is awful. If you don't have it, it's not fun. But you're lying there and you're so tired, but your brain is going and remembering all of the sort of the negative things that have happened, and because you're so exhausted, your level of exhaustion is too high anyway to be able to kind of like rationalize, I guess. It's like, yeah. So there's generally, I think there's like a tipping point where you can rationalize your your emotions and your feelings. But when you're dealing with the kind of levels of exhaustion that we deal with CFS, with ME, it's really difficult to sort of to rationalize that and sort of put it in any kind of like little pigeon, like kind of like put it in a box and sort of go, okay, but I still need to sleep. And so you fight, I do anyway. I find that I fight. I don't know, it's almost like I fight sleep or sleep fights me, but suddenly between my body and my brain, I am so utterly exhausted that sleep is not going to come, which means that the next day, instead of starting out with 12 spoons, I'm down to like 8. And I'm so exhausted then I try and keep going and try and do what I need to do, and then, you know, by the time it reaches like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, spoons are gone, aren't they?
Yeah, it's this really weird thing where you're constantly battling yourself, and as you say, like, you try and sort of get stuff done, and then all of a sudden your body goes, no, off now.
Yeah, and
the power like, off switch goes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the off switch, because I joke about that, and everyone's symptoms are really different. But for me, my eyes start to kind of wobble and unfocus, and my body starts to like really vibrate, and I feel like I'm sort of rocking slightly, like I'm on a boat, and I go and like curl up. But it doesn't help. No. It just doesn't help. I mean, I know the thing is, most of my, and I apologise for the sniffiness. This is one of the extra things that you deal with this kind of, what do we call it? Like co-morbidity of symptoms. I have constantly got a cold. I've had basically sinusitis for 3 years.
Yeah, same here.
And that's kind of the virus that really kicked my CFS into overdrive. But no, so I apologise for my sniffing, but there's nothing I can do about it. That's part of the issue. I have the pain from my injury, and I have the sort of mental health issues. But you've got other physical.
I've got weird stuff.
You've got all sorts of weird things going on in your body, which, I mean, I listen to you talk and just think, I have no idea how she's even like upright. You do amazingly, love. You really do.
I try. Yeah. So when I first got diagnosed, I think we spoke about this before. We talked about the complete difference in care pathways in London compared to outside London.
I was to say, my non-existent care pathway.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I'll probably cut this out. But earlier I was thinking, I don't have my glasses on. And then I just went to like adjust them. I was like, oh, I do.
Oh, I do have my glasses on.
It's
like,
so stupid.
I do stuff like that all the time. Worry no. You know what? If this is kept in the podcast, hey, welcome to our lives. This is what having CFSME is like. I put cardigans in the fridge. I tried to put the sugar, like the top of the sugar thing, on top of a mug the other day. You do all sorts of like the most weird and random things because you're so exhausted. It's like being permanently sleep deprived. So yeah, it is ridiculous. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, yes. Now I've discovered that I do actually have my glasses.
You do actually have glasses on. Excellent. Well, congratulations.
So yeah, I was sent to a rheumatologist. I think they wanted to rule out MS because I was like you, I was getting that vibrating. But mine was like really strong in my legs. I would feel like buzzing. It was almost like it's like you're sort of sat on a washing machine that's going really fast or something. I don't know. It's just this is like proper.
Yeah, this kind of constant like kind of like tick, like kind of zzz kind of feeling like yeah.
Fizzing.
Yeah, fizziness. That's a really good way of putting it because that's what I get sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I described it as.
Yeah, fizzing. Oh, that's great.
So I went to a rheumatologist. They wanted to rule out MS, which is what they should do anyway. And the only way that you can really,
I'm sorry. God, that was really unprofessional.
No, I completely agree. It's ridiculous. They really should do it. So they gave me a full brain and spine MRI scan to check for any abnormalities.
Yeah.
And I was then called up by the rheumatologist to say that they saw an ovarian mass, which turned out to be dermoid cysts on my ovaries, which was quite fun. And They also mentioned that I had cysts in my spinal cord, and I didn't really know much about it. And I found out later that what I've got is called syringohydromyelia. So,
oh my God, well done.
quite a word. So, syringo meaning tube or abnormal tunnel / passage. Okay. Hydro meaning water / fluid. Okay. And myelia means affecting the spinal cord.
Yeah, which is like myalgic, I guess. It's the same root.
So it's kind of like spinal or nerve related. Like myelin is like so MS is affects the myelin sheath, which is the outside of part of nerves, like the outside of the nerves. Yeah. So it's related to nerves and spinal cord and basically the central nervous system. So it's a condition wherein there are fluid-filled tubes or cysts inside the spinal cord. This can cause this can cause pressure on the nerves, and if the syrinx, which is that's the names of these individual cysts, increase in size, they can lead to permanent severe nerve damage, loss of sensation, movement, even eventual paralysis.
Oh, joy! That's I bet you were absolutely thrilled to find all that out.
Well, right. So the cause is often unknown. It could be.
Do you know how? Sorry, I was going to say. Do you know how long you might have had it before?
No.
The diagnosis, or whether it came at the same time, or whether you will have already had that and then that came on top. I just wondered if you knew what.
No.
If there's any links.
So the simple answer is no.
Okay.
The more complicated answer is also no, but. So it could be present since birth, or it could be due to trauma. I did mention this last time. Not last time, sorry, the first podcast. Yeah. But a lot of my nerve problems and pain started coincidentally, annoyingly, so it makes it even harder to really tell what's going on with my CFS and stuff. So when I was in Edinburgh and I was drunk and I leant on a gate thinking it was a fence, and I fell backwards down a flight of stone stairs.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, and I stupidly didn't go to a hospital. I probably had a minor concussion at least.
More than likely.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I did spend the next day just very unwell, and it wasn't just a normal hangover. I couldn't stop being sick. I was just not good. But I just sort of wrote it off at the time of like, probably need to calm down a bit. But it happened at the same time as the onset by CFS. So I did speak to my neurologist and I said, well, how do you know like which of the symptoms and which like what started when and when did this start? And she was just like, we'll never know. We'll literally never know. Yeah. So they don't know whether the accident and resulting syrinx were like a trigger for CFS or some sort of symptoms that I experienced a part of the syrinx and therefore separate. And I said, I didn't think there had been any nerve damage because I'd had nerve function tests and they said it was fine. And she was like, oh, no. Because this is the problem. I don't have one neurologist. They just send you to. It's kind of annoying. You're under a specific consultant neurologist, and then they've got maybe 3 or 4 that kind of like work under them. Okay. And so each couple of times, I seem to see a different 1 or 2 neurologists. So yeah, the last one I saw, she said, well, I think there was a slight amount of nerve problems. I think I had like my feet and my legs. They were overstimulated by. So what they do is they wire you up. It's really fun. Brilliant. And they pass electric shocks down between your nerves, and it just causes like. It's like when they bang the hammer on your knee.
Yeah. So basically, it's like twitching or whatever.
It just causes a twitch.
Like that.
So around my lower legs, my reflexes are too quick, which I think might be part of it. That's what they think. So what they do, the only thing they can do is monitor it. So they monitor it by a full brain and spine MRI every year or 2 to see if they've increased in size. I think I've had my 3rd one now. Yeah. And if they do increase in size, it's relieved by surgery to drain the syrinx. So basically, they surgically go in, put a needle in, and aspirate the fluid in the spinal cord.
Fun.
And obviously, there is always a risk of.
There's a risk of paralysis and stuff. It's the same as having like a lumbar puncture, I guess, but obviously, like more, it's more so.
Well, yeah. Well, my issue is I don't just have one; I have multiple mixed focal syringohydromyelia.
Are they in like a small area of your spine, or are they all?
They're in my thoracic spine, but I think they do go up towards my cervical spine, which is in your neck.
Okay, which is, yeah, because I know that you have all sorts of pain, and I mean the
So I
stuff
get
that you get, all like your neck pain, your hips, and
yeah.
all
So I
that, like,
currently have
oh
neck.
God.
I'm having neck pain at the moment, and I constantly have this sound of like creaking in my neck, and the pain is like the back of my neck, and it's very much centered in the creaking. It's whenever I move my neck at all, my head at all, and it's a very strange sort of sensation. I'm currently getting like shoulder pains, and sometimes that'll like go down my arms a bit, and I'm like, oh, that's not the best sign. But I've noticed weird things like that, and I get like sciatica pain down one of my legs in my hip, and I find that if I don't have my pregabalin, I'm just in a lot of pain all the time, and it's mainly in my legs and sometimes in my arms. And I said to my because my first neurologist was like, oh, I don't think, I think it's just the CFS, and my last one was just like, well, I think it could be, to be honest, it could be the syrinx, but what we need to do is monitor it, and if it grows, then that's kind of what's part of it. So that's
if as it's growing, your pain gets worse, you can kind of
then they know, and that's when they do the surgery. So
isn't it awful that you've got to wait until something gets so bad for anything to be done?
It's nerve-wracking. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, I mean, there's not much else you can do. I mean, if I just had the syringomyelia with a Chiari malfunction, which is when part of your brain extends down too far and it pushes your spinal cord down and it causes pressure, then you have to have like brain surgery. So I was very pleased to learn that I didn't have that part of it.
Yeah, that it's the little things.
Exactly. And then also, like you, I have depression and anxiety and kind of like other kind of PTSD related issues that I won't really go into, but I've always been like you. I'm a very positive person. I really dislike this idea that depression is like just being like morose and like, oh, I'm being negative, because I just don't think it is.
Depression isn't sadness.
No,
Sadness is something totally different.
No,
Depression is a physical, chemical issue that causes a multitude of different symptoms, and it doesn't necessarily make you sad. It just changes how you view things slightly. Well, certainly does me anyway. The one thing that I've noticed certainly is it makes me less rational.
Yes. Yeah.
So I might not be sad in any way. Like, I might feel really kind of upbeat and positive, but I can't look at things in a rational way. Like,
exactly.
I can't like take something and be like, oh, okay, no, like, let's step back and let's think about this for a moment. No, instant reaction. It's like, bam, I'm in there. And that's how my depression kind of comes out, personally. Definitely. Anyway.
See, I've had a lot of cognitive behavioural therapy, and I'm about to go back for some more.
Yeah,
and,
I've had 3 lots now. 3, yeah, I've had 3 lots. So yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I've had a few, and I do think it's kind of like they've explained to me. It's like one of those things. It's like a muscle. You need to like keep flexing it, and if you've got to a point where you're not doing it, sometimes it's good to go back and do it. Yeah, I'm not a sad person.
You're really not.
No, I'm generally not. I'm generally quite a positive, happy person.
I hope you can hear this from like listening to us talking. We're actually very upbeat people.
Yeah, I know.
Like, we all have our issues.
No, completely. And I think both of us are very much like we constantly plugging away to improve our lives and work around our issues and work around like, I'm always trying to think of like, I did have a whole year of like last year I just did nothing. I did fuck all. I did nothing for a whole year. I moved into my house and I was like, oh, I'm gonna decorate it, I'm gonna do all this, and I spent the whole year being like, no, I'm not gonna do anything. And I got to the end of the year and I was like, I just don't want to be like that again. So by the time like November came around, I started to just like bring myself out of my funk. But like you, it's like medication. I had to make sure I was on the right medication. I think part of last year for me, I think it did one reason I think it did probably get quite bad was because I was on the wrong pill. And I think my hormones were really bad as well. So I changed to a different pill because of my PCOS, my cysts on my ovaries. I had to have surgery and stuff, and I've still got like They're not just like the normal cysts that just appear. They're ones that you have to have surgically removed. They just completely messed up my ovaries. I think that really didn't help with tiredness and mood. But yeah, I've kind of like started to bring myself out of my funk now, and I'm like being really productive, and I'm actually a lot more happy, and I'm feeling like myself again. But I still have to. I have medication. I find the pregabalin, not only does it help the pain, but they also give it for anxiety, because it's really good for anxiety.
It's really good for anxiety, which yeah, it does help mine. If I miss doses, I'm less than a peach to be around. I will be honest.
I had a couple of days without it recently, and I had like a full-blown panic attack by the third day. But luckily that was the day I could go and pick it up. So I was like, oh my god.
Oh.
Exactly. I think it really does mess you up quite a lot. And like you were saying, I think it impacts on your CFS, because there's that thing where you first get diagnosed with something as serious as CFS. And for me, I had this real, like, I cried in the rheumatologist's office. I just didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to, because I just had this idea that it was just lazy people, or I knew that it wasn't, but I knew that people thought it was.
Well, that's it. You know what you know how you're feeling, and you know what your symptoms are. And as soon as a doctor almost, I mean, for me, it was almost like a fob off diagnosis. And I don't know what it was like for you, but for me, it was like, oh, you've got it's CFS. There's nothing you can do. And at that point, I was like, but no, I feel dreadful. It's got to be actually a proper illness. It's got to be something. It's got to be something like real and proper, because I don't. Same as you, I guess. Kind of grew up with the people making jokes about CFS. It's like yuppie flu. It's people who are just swinging the lead and can't be bothered. And it's like, but I'm not like that. And so so you fight against it, and then you make yourself worse. And yeah, and then we're in a spiral, aren't we? Again.
One thing that always gets me is if CFS was caused by being like miserable or whatever, it would make more sense if it was people who are like having like awful times, blah blah blah. But when I sort of came down with it, I'd just been accepted into the trainee detective program, so I was literally about to learn how to do my dream job. You know, I was working every day doing like amazing stuff. I was like, I loved my job. Everything was going really well. You know, I'd sort of recently come out as, you know, as gay, and I kind of felt like, yeah, I'm finally doing what I want to.
Yeah, you're getting yourself sorted. Like, your life is kind of coming together. It's good. It's good. Yeah. It's like you found your niche, you found your path, you found like who you are more. Now you can start living.
And then your body's like, no.
And then you're like, no. Yeah, you're feeling good. Now here's the punchline. Exactly.
But, like, it just doesn't make any sense. And like for you, I know you were doing your dream job. You were really loving it.
I was teaching, and it was like what I'd always wanted to do. And I'd finally, after years and years of just kind of like of trying to get there, finally the opportunity arose because we moved across the country, and it was hard. I mean, being like. It was hard, and you were in the same position. It's like, but I like hard work. I always have done. I like the challenge. I like the challenge, and I did really well.
Yeah, same here.
I got a really good job, and everything was going fantastically. And basically, I was like, all of my assessments were sort of saying I was outstanding as a teacher, and I was really like involved, and I was working like 70-hour weeks.
This is the same as me. I could like, it's like we're writing each other's story.
It's crazy, isn't it? I was like 70-hour weeks and just not even stopping, just constantly go, all the way through holidays and everything. People think teachers have holidays. Yeah, they don't. I had contacted this sort of centenary World War I company that was taking gifted and talented battlefields trips, and I took a couple of kids to the battlefields, and it was exhausting, but I had an amazing time. And I got on the coach for the goodness knows how many hours drive back from Belgium it actually was, but I felt my body crumble, and it was really like immediate. Because I pushed myself, so adrenaline had been going. I think I'd probably been getting ill for a little bit of time before that, but adrenaline had kind of pushed me through, and I don't know, I can't even imagine it wasn't different for you, that you are so involved in everything, you push and you fight, and then suddenly, when you stop, you get slammed by how by how horrendous you feel. And my body, I got picked up. I was in the car, I couldn't speak, and I got curled up into bed, and that was me for 3 months. Like, basically, like crawling to the loo. It's been really, I mean, I know that we're completely, like, randomly going off topic and all sorts, but this is what happens when you have CFS, when you have ME. It's really difficult to kind of focus on one thing because you forget what you're supposed to be talking about. Or certainly I do. I start on one thing and then end up just sort of on another, and then just stopping and going, why did I start talking?
Oh yeah, I always think there's a meme of Michael Scott, who's the boss in the American version of The Office, and he says, this is a brilliant quote from him, where he says, sometimes when I start a sentence, I don't know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way. I always think that's so good. It's very, very me as well. And I do feel like, because the CFS kind of like addles your brain. And I've become like, I was just always so articulate. I've constantly, I was interviewing suspects. I was writing all these complex case files, and constantly, like, I was in court, I was dealing with the CPS and all sorts of things. And then now I feel like my brain just sort of crumbled into nothing.
I mean, obviously exactly the same. As a teacher, there is absolutely no way that I could stand in front of a classroom, because I'm doing quite well, because I literally woke up 30 minutes before we started this?
Yes.
I'd sort of had to sleep the afternoon away because I was so shattered, and I haven't been doing my I've pushed too far. I've pushed too hard recently, and it's come back to bite me, and I've not been able to do anything. And luckily Claire stepped in and was like, you need to stop what you're doing. And luckily we're good enough friends to kind of go, for me to, like, know her well enough to go, yeah, okay, actually you're totally right. You know me well enough to know that I do actually need to stop.
Definitely. But I do think the anxiety and the depression, go back into comorbidities, it plays into that, because you do have that anxiety of, like, constantly thinking, like, am I ill enough? Or am I faking it? Like, oh my god, what if I've been faking it this whole time? Like, you constantly doubt yourself.
What if they were right and this is psychological?
I know, I'll have like one good day and I'm, oh god! And then
oh my god, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle, I'm fine. I have been faking it the whole time. Yeah. And then I like feel really guilty, but then I like force myself to do things, and then I crash.
push and then crash.
Yeah. And I do think that's one thing you've got to struggle if you've got that. I think, like, comorbidity and illness makes things a lot harder to deal with. Like, often it means it's difficult to, like, as we said before, it's difficult to tell which condition is causing which symptoms. So is it just your depression that you're really tired and exhausted, or is it CFS, or is it both? It can also mask new conditions starting. So, for example, if I start to get pain somewhere, is it simply a CFS? Is it the syrinx causing new damage? And it's like, is it something really new as well? If I got something completely different, I don't know.
I'm scared of going to doctors now, because because of my depression. I think my self-worth is not great, I'll be honest, and because I've had such bad times with doctors, that if I have any new symptoms, I'm scared of going to the doctor, because I assume that they're going to blame my depression, because I think a lot of people deal with that as soon as you say that you've got any kind of depression or mental health issues, that is instantly what doctors focus on. And it's almost because I don't know whether it's because they can sign you off, they can write you off as that, be like, oh yeah, you've got depression, here, have some tablets, and like send you on your way, because it's not as it's complex, but it's not as, like, they don't have to actually like do anything. I mean I have to say that I'm a little bit less than trusting of doctors these days because of what I've been through, but my experience of 3 years of CFS is that any time that I've had any kind of issues, they have always asked about my depression.
I feel like GPs are quite difficult in that respect. I do know what you mean about not trusting doctors, because they do kind of focus it a lot more on like your depression, whereas when I've actually gone to the neurologist, they're a lot more willing to discuss all things, and they will discuss like your mental health just because they want to check how you are, because when people have more complex problems like both of us have nerve pain related problems that aren't CFS related, and that's where they should, they should look at everything. I find GPs kind of, because they're so like not trained in that one area, they just pinpoint on what's the easiest to solve. One thing I think is quite interesting is because you end up sort of bouncing around between all these different specialists, and I do think like if you live in a country without universal healthcare, it's probably very costly and it's very stressful. I actually because of my mum has Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, and sort of joint ligament problems, like runs in our family. She attended in 2016 a roundtable committee meeting at the House of Parliament. I attended it with her, and it was discussed that there's a need to do yearly reviews, and we talked about the fact that just have with a nurse for patients with multiple conditions, especially those with memory problems and cognitive difficulties. And I think the CFS kind of like buys into that, because you think we do have cognitive problems. So many people I know with CFS are like these highly intelligent people, and yet I forget like really simple words now because of the brain fog. And it's so much easier when I can have like my own time to like slowly type things out and remember words. But like if you're in a work environment, you can't do that. Or if you're like in a doctor's surgery, you can't always remember everything, because it changes how your brain works. And I think we need to have that yearly review. And it seems to be the case that no one gets a yearly review, even though that's actually mandated in guidelines that like people with Alzheimer's should have a yearly review. But this is the issue that's a problem with our medical system at the moment.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what it would be like for those of you who are listening who aren't in the UK, because at least we have, for now at least, the NHS. But no, I don't know what it would be. I can't imagine what it will be like for people who don't live somewhere that has got the kind of the healthcare that we have. And I may complain about healthcare. I may raise money for like Emmy Action is like my charity.
It's a fantastic charity.
Jennifer Bray, because it's got teeth. It's not a passive charity. It's active. It's sort of it's what I feel that we should be doing as people who have, we don't have a lot of energy, but we need to stand up for the people who can't stand up for themselves. And so I may sort of raise sort of money for them and so on, but I may complain about the treatment I've had by the NHS, but at least I have had something. And at least there is something there that I don't have to pay for. Like, I've worked all of my life and I've always like paid my national insurance and various other things, so I don't feel sort of too bad about it. But I can't imagine what it will be like to go through what we are going through and have to pay to go and see a neurologist, pay to go and see a rheumatologist, pay to see your GP. And honestly, if anyone's listening to this who isn't in somewhere who's got some kind of national health service, so if you're I mean, obviously America's the big one, but honestly, if you could like get in touch with us and let us know what it's like for you, that would be amazing. Because I'd be really interested to hear what it is like to suffer in another country.
Yeah, very much so. It just must be so difficult having to worry about finances, and especially if you're not able to work, you're screwed.
Yeah,
Because
when they diagnose it, they say it's mild, it's moderate, it's severe. And mine's class is moderate. I think yours class is moderate. So mild is when you have the sort of post-exertional malaise, but generally speaking, they sort of say that you can still work, but you are still a spoonie, so you still have to allocate. It's just it doesn't take maybe quite as much, so you can still work, but that you can't really do anything else. So all you're doing is like living to work and then sleeping and then going back to work again, and that must be awful.
Yeah.
And also people at work, oh, you're just tired. And then there's us who can't work, but we can, we try and do as much as we can. We still have to sleep an awful lot. I can't exercise really, because I get massive. The post-exertional malaise is just horrendous. No. Even just swimming can knock me out for like I can't actually move. But severe, you can't touch, sound, you can't cope with anything. And so there are so many levels of this illness as well. It's so complex There's so much more complexity than just being a bit tired. And it would be really interesting to hear from people actually, like, who have got this, just to give us some more insight into what it's like for you guys as well, because we're both, you know, we still, the person that we are, we're still there. It's really hard to get out sometimes, like, verbally. But the person who wants to learn and, like, wants to know stuff.
Oh yeah, completely.
It's still there.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like I'm very grateful. I know you are too, for like those, you know, when you have the good times and you are able to get out for the occasional sort of like for me it will just be a very gentle walk along the beach, which is right next to my house, or like just, you know, pop to the shops. And again, it's like not like other people go shopping all day, yes. You know, be
a brief sojourn,
like a brief jaunt. But then, you know, we do both have our times when we are bedbound, and again, you kind of just learn to deal with it. But I suppose it's a bit easier knowing that you're moderate. And once CFS, from what I've seen and from what I've heard from other people, it seems to be that thing of like after the first sort of like year or so, it kind of settles into what it's gonna be. Like, you know that, oh, if I'm just bedbound for like a couple of months, I know that at some point I'll be okay again. When I say okay,
but that for us,
you know,
is like,
able to get out of bed.
You'll never get over the fact
that's
that
about it.
You'll have like family and friends and whatever who'll be like, well, you know, you'll get better, you know. And it's like, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for that.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the mirror.
If you could point me in the direction of the magic pills that's going to make me better. I always want to run the marathon. If anyone could let me know. I think that we kind of like covered the main bits of like the comorbidities. It's just, it really does impact. And I think a lot of people with CFS have comorbidities because it is a complex problem. And you find that people with things like, and this is one thing I learned from being like interacting with my mother, with her parliamentary stuff and her campaigning, is that people with complex problems do tend to end up with comorbidities, and people end up with specifically like anxiety and depression. And it's kind of like almost being ill makes you sometimes make you quite depressed, because you're just sat there like not being able to do anything. And I think it's just really important for people to understand that it isn't just being tired. There's a lot more to it, and it often interacts with other things. No one really knows all of what's going on with so many illnesses. You never know like what's caused by what, and it's just really useful for people to understand that things are always more complicated.
I mean, it's
when you've got,
like you said,
such
it's the
like
fact
a
that it's
long-term
incredibly
complicated illness.
It's also, I mean, I've reached that point where I keep on sort of saying like I can't brain anymore, and this is what it's like. I can think of what I'm going to say, but then suddenly, instantly, it's gone. There are two things. I mean, I want to finish off just saying two things. The first one is that you are not your CFS. You are. It's going to impact on you. It's going to make a massive difference to your life, and you will have comorbidity. You might have depression. You might have goodness knows what else. But you're not alone. There are so many of us out there, and there is, especially on Twitter, there's a really, really sort of nice support network almost. I mean, that's where Claire and I met. We met over Twitter because we both had a mutual friend who knew that we both had ME/CFS, and so put us in touch, and then like the rest is history. Here we are. So, you know, there are people who can help and provide you with support and try and remind you as well that it's okay to not be okay. Like, you're not defined by this. You're not, like, the person who you are doesn't actually change. The other thing is, if you're not actually like a sufferer, you're just like a friend, you're like an ally. Comorbidity is a real issue, and a lot of us have anxiety and depression. Please don't stop inviting us to stuff and like caring. Because a lot of the time you will, most of the time, in fact, you will find that unless you give us an awful lot of like advice, like prior warning, we're not going to be able to turn up, and we're not going to be able to do things. But it means so much to somebody who has got so many different issues and ailments. that you can really help us. You can really help with that. I know I'm not really making much sense now because I'm like super tired.
No, you are. I completely get it. I think it's one thing my mum has taught me is that she sort of really kind of like that she really puts out into the world in relation to her dementia. She never likes to be termed as suffering from, it's living with. And I do kind of try and I think that's definitely a really good a good thing to promote, because I try and sort of remember that whole thing of, you know, you aren't your illness, you aren't all of the problems that you have. I'm still. I'd love to,
you'd love to if you had the energy kind of thing as well.
And,
but yeah, it's
know, exactly. And maybe I just can't do it as much as other people. It doesn't mean I don't like really enjoy being invited and what I like from my friends, and what, you know, I've got some wonderful close friends, like Liese, for example, who, you know, you could just sort of say, oh, not this time, but maybe, you know, next week, because I have
we know how there.
I'm getting tired. I can't even speak. Can't even talk. I had the limited capacity for maybe like 1 or 2 outings of doing something a week, whereas, and that's if I don't work. If I work, I could
it'd be less than,
and I'd never even be able to have a shower.
But
yeah, you like to be able to be invited. And the really good friends I have are able to sort of understand.
They'll never stop
this
inviting
time, but
you,
I can
and
do
that's
it in,
really
like,
important
February.
to make you.
And they'll be like, okay,
make you feel more human. Make you feel like make you feel like an individual. You're not your illness, and
you're not your illness.
It massively helps if you've got depression and anxiety to have people who are going to be understanding and sympathetic towards you. I think. I was going to say, should we wrap up and say
I
goodbye?
think that's a pretty good way of ending it.
I think we should kind of talk about
say goodbye.
The things that we do to keep ourselves like sane. And that sounds really bad, but keep ourselves like going, like to live with CFS, not to suffer from it. The things that we can kind of, our coping strategies, little bit sort of mechanisms that we found, the things that we do to kind of like to try and deal with this. I know that we're definitely going to talk about that at some point, but we have a Twitter account. We are, if the @sign, we are Secret Spoon Pod. Pink and purple. It's the same picture. You'll definitely see it.
Very pink and purple.
If you want to send us a question at all, or let us know what it is like to suffer in the country that you're in, and even if you're in the UK and you want to kind of give us your story, tell us what it's been like for you. You can email us as well at thesecretspoonie@gmail.com. And that is my little advertising bit done, I think, for the end.
As we've said, once we've got a few going and we're kind of more in the swing of things, we'll start looking into uploading it onto actual streaming services. Yeah, I don't really know how SoundCloud works, so I've got to kind of work out all of that. But I'll put things in the link in the description in the YouTube.
I will do,
I know if Liese will broadcast it on her Twitch at some point, then we will. She'll pop all the things on there that are necessary, and we'll go from there. But thank you so much for joining us again this time, guys.
I'm glad to be back.
Thank you.
See you next time.
See you on the next one.